All right, what's happening? This is your host, Knowledge Beckham of the Droppin Knowledge podcast. I'm so happy to be back. We were off again last week. We have to stop taking these weeks off, but life has been busy. But I'm super excited about this episode. I met this young lady via Instagram, right? So one of my goals with the Droppin Knowledge podcast, I have an awesome network, but I'm looking to expand outside of the network. So there's so many dope people out here and I ran across this young lady. Actually, she is a friend of a friend. So shout out to my buddy, comedian, actor, Rodney Perry. Be on the lookout for him in the newest Coming to America that'll be coming out this December, I believe. But this young lady has an amazing story. She's going to talk to us today about how to monetize your book and how to go through that process. But I'm super excited to have her. So I want to welcome Desiree Lee to the Droppin Knowledge podcast. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, absolutely. And even though you're from California, you're repping the A, right?
Absolutely. I live here in Atlanta, was born in California, and I frequently go back there here and there.
Okay, well, cool. I came across your page initially through Rodney. That's how we connected. But then, as I started to take a look at your Instagram page, I couldn't leave. Right, I just kept taking a look at more and more posts that you've done, and I was looking at your story. And I know a few people personally that have recently went and ventured into the book world, and so I thought that would be a dope episode to kind of talk about that and talk about what inspired you. So let's go back. Let's learn a little bit about you because I think that's important as to how you got to this space. So you talked about growing up in California. How did you grow up? Good
Well,
upbringing, great area, bad area.
I had a fairly good upbringing, I would say. If we wanted to compare it to somebody else's lifestyle or upbringing. However, both of my parents worked in the church. My mother was a choir director. My father was the audio engineer. So I was brought up in the church, of course, in there hours after hours of the day. And that's how I was raised until my parents got a divorce when I was around 10 years old. And that really shattered my perception from a young kid of family unit and different things like that, because I didn't even recognize or see that there was a problem or they had their differences. So I didn't see that. And then my mother, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And even though my parents were divorced, they did an excellent job with co-parenting. The same rules applied at both houses. So me and my younger brother couldn't get away with too much. My father was heavily involved in my life, even though it was cross states. But he was active, and my mom made sure to keep that relationship or that door open too as well. And I joke around with people now. I remember my dad every year for my birthday, he'll just send books. He will always send us some knowledge, as you would say, dropping knowledge
That's right.
every year. And I used to be so upset as a teenager. You get books and a card with a little bit, some money in it. And I'm like, okay, why am I getting on these books? And then to now becoming an author. And so it's funny on how that works.
Right, absolutely. So how was Atlanta for you once you made the move to Atlanta? How was that kind of growing up, and what was that like?
Oh, it was very different. Um, I saw a lot of, of course, the scenery was a bit shock. Of course, the culture, especially in the African American community, because in California, I didn't see too much of that. And so just trying to adapt in the Southern type of culture and the hospitality too as well. However, I had a difficult time integrating myself as a teen and trying to make friends, and I was trying to fit in with the crowd. My mother, stressed that with education, you can get further with education than hustling. It was very, very stressed about education and getting good grades and being active and different things like that. And so I had a 3.8, graduated with a 3.8 GPA. I had 2 basketball scholarships on my way to college, with a great foundation, but I still wanted to be liked and accepted by my peers, to be a part of something.
Right.
And having that negative guidance. I say to parents all the time, yes, be the parent first, but be the friend second. And because there were some different issues or questions I had, or I was inquisitive about, being a young lady, about boys and different things like that, that I could not get those answers from my parents. So I relied on negative guidance from my friends. And they started to accept me. The more I became like them, the more, was accepting in that culture. And, one day, 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, I found myself on the other side of the law. And how I wish I would have listened to my mother, how I wish I would have taken heed to the wisdom and advice that was given. Association brings on a simulation. Show me who your friends are, I'll show you who you're going to become type of
Mm,
lectures that were going on in the house.
right.
And I was facing 135 years in prison for 11 counts of armed robbery and 5 counts of aggravated assault. And
Wow.
everything that I worked for went right out the window. And regardless of my upbringing, regardless of the lifestyle that I had as a teenager, that or my grades or intellect, none of that mattered.
Wow. That's that had to be traumatic. So you were how old at the time? You said a couple weeks after graduating high school?
Yes, I was 17 years old.
Wow. So in your case, you talked about facing 135 years. Were the other people, did they also get caught as well?
Yes, I was the driver of the situation. And my co-defendants, of course, they got time too as well. Um, but in that courtroom was like the first time that I, saw, the favor of God, and not based off of my mom's prayers, not based off of people praying for me in church. It was like, it was just me and the Lord. I couldn't depend on mommy. I couldn't depend on daddy. And I'm just thankful that they taught me how to pray.
Absolutely. Wow. So you were facing 135 years. How much time did you end up having to do?
Well, when I faced the judge, and as I mentioned, that I saw God working in my favor, she said, I don't know what it is about you. I can't give you a slap on the wrist because you knew what you were doing the first time, the second time, the 11th time, even though this is your first time ever getting in trouble. Um, the least she can give me was 10 years to serve 4 years in prison.
Mm,
And she looked at me, this older white lady in Georgia, and says,
right.
if you ever get sad, just write me. I can't wait to see what you do with your second chance. And
Wow.
so when I was in jail, she used to, it was no long letters or nothing. It was just little notes, keep your head up, and, you're going to have a second chance and don't give up.
Mm,
And just little things. It wasn't like, big story to tell, but it meant something. It was, her not just dropping knowledge, but her also planting seeds. And so I appreciate that because now she's able to see the harvest of those seeds that she planted in me while I was incarcerated.
wow. Wow. Being incarcerated at that age, we don't, we want to talk about the book and so forth, but I want to lay the foundation. What was that experience like for you at such a young age, and basically being a good young lady, right? A good person, a good teenager. How was that experience, and how did it shape you?
Well, I often tell young people when regardless of the environment that you grow up in, oftentimes we think that it will never happen to us. Even with success, sometimes we look at success, we look at other people's success and say it will never happen to us. And going in, I'm like, wow, it happened to me, right? And so it was a very traumatic experience because I'm 17 years old at the time with grown women who have, and young women who have life sentences and nothing to lose.
Mm.
I speak with the United States Attorney's Office and with the District Attorney of DeKalb County here in the state of Georgia and Fulton County. And I often tell young people it's not like Scared Straight. The difference between prison and Scared Straight is that they can literally touch you. Um,
Right.
and it's one guard to 300, 400 inmates in one dorm. And, it was really eye opening, but and a lot of different stories come to mind, but I'm grateful for it because it kind of forced me to be in a place where um, it was just me and God. It was just me and God. And I'm just glad that He kept me in the midst of going through, like Jonah in the well, or Moses. Um, I'm just really thankful that He kept me while I was going through, especially at that age in that type of environment. I don't wish that on anyone. It was a very, very traumatic experience.
I'm sure. I appreciate you for sharing. So let's talk about now as you come out, right? So you've served your time, you come back into society. Do you remember what your game plan was? Did you have a game plan?
You know what? These are some really great questions, Knowledge. And,
Thank you.
I did have a game plan. I think when we make mistakes, or even when, we have a business plan or whatnot, we always have a game plan, but you can only plan as far as your experience or what you've been exposed to.
That's right. Right.
um, and it kind of evolves over time. It kind of evolves as you continue to go through life and every step of the day. Way. However, my game plan was to go back to school, go to college, start a career, get my life back on track. However, that quickly shattered because of now having a criminal background.
Mm.
Um, and it wasn't like I could just get it expunged immediately. It wasn't like it was a lot of opportunities out there for individuals. The examples that I did see of convicted felons, making it out here in the free world as a citizen was only two males. And I really didn't see anything for a female who was a convicted felon, who now has a child and made it on the other side. And I'm like, man, this is such a setup. I see why, or understand why I saw so many people coming back within those 4 years when I was in prison,
Right.
because you can't get an apartment, for the parents who have children right now. It's worse getting out of prison, or the criminal background is more detrimental than actually being in prison,
Okay.
because they do background checks on apartments, not just credit. They do background checks on Pell Grants or federal grants, because it's federal money. So I couldn't go back to school unless I paid for it personally out of pocket. And the only way that you can pay for out of pocket is if you get a job. So I couldn't be a waitress at a Red Lobster. I couldn't be a waitress at, Papados or something like that. I couldn't
Right.
work in retail. I couldn't work stocking the shelves at the grocery store. I couldn't even work at McDonald's. I tried all these different options. And so I went into the field of entrepreneurship. And what a lot
Okay.
of people don't know is that I had 6 businesses prior to actually writing my book. And so when I started having these businesses, I had a photo booth business. I was selling clothes at the consignment shop. I was making like kids purses and little sandals and selling those, because I just refused to go back to that place because it was so traumatic. But after 6 years of being released from prison, it was the most darkest moments of my life, because trying these businesses and hitting a brick wall. It wasn't like I was sitting on the couch and having someone take care of me. I was out
Right.
there every single day trying to find, like, where is the hole? I know I cannot be the only convicted felon out here that is going through this. Why isn't no one sharing? And I
Right.
was so depressed until and I just wanted to commit suicide because I didn't see
Mm.
any more options. when people find themselves hitting a brick wall or thinking those types of thoughts, a lot of times they feel like there's no more options. I tried everything.
Right.
And again, it's you can only try and create a plan what you've been exposed to.
That's right.
And so on this day, which I do share in my book, I ran into a stranger, just similar to how we met. We're strangers at one time. And I really take value on meeting other people because you don't know if that person or if this video is the key to bring you to the next step.
Right.
Okay. And so when I was in the nail salon, I shaved all my hair off, and this lady, she looked at me, and I was upset and angry, and I was telling her, I was like, this is a stranger, I'm not going to see her again.
Right.
And she invited me to coffee the next day. And I thank God for her because she ruined my suicidal plans that night because I met with her
Wow.
the next day. And when I sat in this coffee shop, just having a pity party, woe is me, the system this, my parents this, I can't get a leg up. And I was just crying my heart out. And she just sat there and smiled. And I'm like, why is this lady smiling after I just shared with her this dark place that I'm in? And I'm trying to tell her without telling her that, I'm tired. I'm just tired of being tired.
Right.
And she pulls out of her purse a small jar of mustard seeds, placed them in my hand, asked me what they were. I knew what they were. Have faith as a mustard seed. You can move mountains. But you have to open up your mouth and speak. You have to open and ask. You have to speak to the mountain. Our problems sometimes stack up so high they become our mountains. And
Mm.
that's when I decided to write my book. I didn't have no option. I started saying my affirmations that she gave me. I started believing in myself. I couldn't believe in myself at the moment. I just believed what she said about me until I
Right.
could start believing in myself. And I said, well, I messed up my life. Let me just write this book, and hopefully there'll be a young person and they'll have a better chance. They'll have a fighting chance than I would. And I originally wrote my book off of that premise and that feeling, and wrote in my book, what would I say to myself? What would I say to my parents? How would that dynamic parent child relationship be? Because I don't think my parents wish that on me, of course,
Right.
but I know they tried to talk and it just wasn't clicking.
Right. Wow. Wow. If you guys are tuned in, you want to tag someone, you want to share this. She's told an amazing story. I mean, amazing for us listeners. Obviously, a very different story for her. So I appreciate your openness and how much you're sharing. For anybody listening in, again, if you're not following us, make sure that you subscribe to the Droppin' Knowledge podcast on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, on Facebook, everywhere that we can catch you, episode by episode. We're simply educating the culture. So let's talk about this book. So now you are planning on writing this book. Was this book more therapy for you, or did you look at it as, obviously the name of this episode is How to Monetize Your Book? Were you looking at it from a monetization standpoint, or simply I need to get this out, right? I need to tell someone and I want to help someone else.
Well, initially it started off as somewhat of therapy and sharing my story to prevent other people from going through the same thing. There's three reasons why we experience things. Oftentimes your business is based around or you educate other people based off your experience. And those three reasons are to prevent someone else from going in, encourage somebody who is in it, and to
Mm,
show people that nothing is impossible. So I
mm,
wrote it on those three premises. When I published my book, even with Mr. Dan, he is the president of the Apex Museum here in Atlanta, Georgia, saw my interview on TV, reached out to me, and he just sat me in his office and was like, hey, how can I help you? My dad told me to go in there with a list. Okay. So when you're writing your book, guys, or if you're thinking about monetizing your book, write a list. And on this list, my dad said, write down, I don't care how big or small, everything what you want. The most difficult thing that people cannot answer this question is, what do you want? What
mm.
do you want? Not what do you need? What do you want? And so after you publish your book, where do you want your book to go? What do you want to come out of this book? And so what I said is, I want this book to go to the four corners of the earth. I want everybody to hear the story. I'm sure there's other people who go through this, and so forth and so forth. So Mr. Dan helped me publish the book. In 30 days, I written, edited, formatted, and published, and had a book signing, sold out of my first book signing in 30 days.
Wow.
He said, wow, he's never seen that happen. And I think it's because I put all of my focus in one thing. So a lot of times people want to think they need to write another book and write another book and write another book, or they want to, jump on this idea as an author, jump on this idea as an author. But you can go so much further if you focus on one thing. And that's what I did. From monetizing my book, and I hope people are taking notes, because I love sharing this side of how did it transition into where I'm at right now, helping other authors. And so with that, in the first year, I sold 20,000 copies of my book as a self-published author.
Wow.
People are like, that's unheard of. But I took it as, transferable skills, that my life depended on it. There were no other options. Remember when I said sometimes you feel like you're in a dark place, as if there's no other options? Well, on one hand, it can work in your favor, because if that's all you have left, it's like, this has to work, or I don't know what else I'm going to do. So as I'm speaking in churches and speaking in high schools, young people used to come to me and say, hey, Miss Lee, you're telling me to stay out of prison. Look at the environment I need money. And when we talk about monetize, people say, hey, I'm not doing it for the money. Well, you need money to buy more books to put it in more people's hands. Right. You need money to pay for your internet to be able to get your voice out there. You need money to keep your lights on and different things like that. So I don't want people to be naive to think I'm not going to write this book without the intention of making money. Right. Because those individuals who published their books years ago are coming to me and saying, how do I sell it? How do I make money? Well, the young people, I knew young people who sell drugs, they have an entrepreneur mindset. And so I just put a different product in their hand. Instead of weed or dope, I put a book, and I told them to go flip the book. I said, if you can sell this book, tell them I came to your school. This is how you're going to sell it. You go into the parking lot, just like you sold candy from your school. Hey, this lady came to my school. I'm trying to stay out of trouble. And I split the profit 60-40 with the kids. And they're the ones who helped me sell 20,000 copies of my book. And so it was a genius way to do that. Yeah. And they would go and get their haircuts and be selling it at the barbershop. And they come back, I meet their parents at the gas station, give them more books. They give me my money, just as if we were, exchanging, drugs or something. Right. And it put money in their pocket and inspired them to write too as well.
So let's go back, right? So we're talking about this first book. We're talking about the gentleman that ran the museum, right, who helped you. You mentioned that he saw you on TV. Right. How did that happen? How did you get on TV, and what were you talking about? Were you telling your story? Because this is prior to your book. So tell us about that.
I was a speaker for 2 years prior to being a published author.
Okay.
And so from that, I just never had a fear of asking. My mother instilled in me, never be afraid to ask. All they could say is yes or no. And so what I used to do, from the lady who gave me the mustard seed, I used to imagine myself in places, on TV, on stages, what would happen and how would I look? What would I wear? And when you start imagining, you start creating, you start doing just a little bit. I said, if I do a little bit every day, eventually I'll get to my goal. And then I actually became it. So being on TV was simply seeing the show, Googling the show, sending an email, put a prayer on the email, and when they called, I just made sure I was ready. My encouragement to people is to prepare for what you pray for. And you only get what you prepare for. And so oftentimes we want to make these big sales on our book, but you're not even prepared. You don't even know where to buy copies of your book. You don't know distribution. You don't understand how to get affiliates. You don't, it forces you to get a little bit more creative. So that's how I was able and awarded to be on newspapers prior to becoming a published author. Getting my story out there that way, and getting on television shows is just asking. It's really as
Right.
simple as just asking and being prepared.
So the gentleman again that owned the museum. So as you started this journey, you mentioned how you had wrote and edited and structured your book within 30 days. How much did you know about what you were going into? So if somebody's listening to this, they feel that they have a story, they want to share it. How much do they need to know before simply starting? Is there a lot of homework, research? Do they need to seek someone out like yourself, or should they just go and start working and getting something down on paper?
I strongly recommend that you just go ahead and start writing and getting the story out there prior to. And the reason is this: as you do begin to do research and listening to different things, sometimes you can get overwhelmed, or sometimes it can startle you. Sometimes it can put you in a place of fear of succeeding, not necessarily failure, and you won't do it at all. And
Right.
so I strongly encourage people to just jump, just do it. And then the individuals, and then come to me for help, or come to me to help you expand your territory. So when I wrote the book, I wasn't knowledgeable about it. Mr. Dan from the Apex Museum, he helped me along the way. But he allowed me to be as creative as I wanted to. And he was a teacher that taught me how to fish, but didn't just give me the fish. And so I adapted that type of teaching to my students online and to my members. And then some of my members are watching right now, in regards of how to start and how to finish, because there's so many different directions that a person could take their book, because you have inspirational, you have self-help, you have different genres, you have children's book, you have coloring books. And so, which brings me into how to monetize, and remember, focusing on one thing. And so I talked about it a little bit with you, but when it comes down to monetizing, I just have a thought process of, how do I take this book and make it into this product into many forms? I look at it as just like a
Right.
song, right? And so, and I take it and I apply it to water, or science, if you want to say, meaning that water can turn into ice. You can freeze it as ice. You can color the ice, and now it's a popsicle. You can color the water in a cup and with crystallite, and now it's a different type of product, but it's still water. You can steam it,
Right.
water. Boil it, water. It's so many different formats, and different forms that the book can take. So, with monetizing your book, let's get down to the nitty gritty, okay?
Yeah.
And I hope people are taking notes. With monetizing your book, you can turn your book. Your first thing is, what do you want? Do you want your book to go to schools? Do you want your book to go to prisons? Do you want your book to go around the world? Do you want it in libraries? Do you want it in bookstores? Do you want it in airports? Okay. And it's finding the small pond and being a big fish in a small pond. Okay. You don't have to sell on distribution channels like everyone else is doing. You can really maximize your sales in a small pond. For instance, I used the teenagers, right? The young people, to help me. And
Right.
I was a big fish in this small pond, which a lot of authors didn't think of. Okay, so now you have your paperback book, you have a hardback book, you have an ebook. These three different forms is three different avenues to monetize. And the reason why, a lot of authors just have an ebook, but not everybody likes ebooks. Even though ebooks sell a
Right.
lot, not everybody likes ebooks. Not everybody likes paperback. Some people like the hardback book to be put on their shelf, and some people like all three. Now you have a bundle.
Right.
And so
Right.
those are three different types of forms, just like the water. The next one, I have an audio book. Okay. And then the next thing that you can definitely do, you can have a coloring book. You can have a workbook from the same form. Then not only that knowledge, okay, the same book, you can translate the book. So my book is also in Spanish, and also available in French. So now I have 8 different forms from one book. And then I
Yeah.
have an actual DVD where young people ask me questions and I answered it, like a Q&A session, and answered it and put it in a DVD and published that. I also have it streaming on Amazon Prime too as well. So that's 10 different forms with one story. So there really
Book.
isn't
Yeah.
so many different types of books, but so many different multiple streams of income from one story on 10 different platforms, 10 different ways. How many ways can I form it? So I have my book here. It's in paperback. I have my hardback book here where you can publish this in hardback book. See? Okay. Also, I have
Mm-hmm.
my DVD here. Okay. And I just want people to know. And also my book called Pass the Mustard Seed, which was inspired by the lady who gave me a mustard seed, Pass the Mustard Seed. I have another DVD
Wow.
there and a compilation book. And so when you do this, then you say, okay, remember we went back to what do you want? Now, how am I going to get it out there? I went on tour and I created my own tour. People say, well, how'd you go on tour? I said, look, I tell people I graduated from YouTube University. I got a PhD on Google University, and they really think it's a real college, right? And so I said no,
Right.
I just research and watch episodes and podcasts just like this one on knowledge. And I call them my little millionaire messengers, right? So then I said, okay,
Mm.
well, where could I put it? So then I started asking, okay, I put it in airports. My book is in the Denver, Colorado airport. It's in the Hartfield Jackson bookstore, Hudson bookstore, here in Atlanta, Georgia, too, as well. Well, how did you do that? I Googled the distributor. I called the store up and said, how do I get my book on your shelf? What
Right.
is the process? And then I prepared. And again, you get what you prepare for. Okay. I don't know if you have any questions or anything so far.
No, I mean, that's no.
Any
You
questions?
gave us a lot. You're making my job super simple. I'm sure folks are. You know what? For everyone tuned in, I see the comments are jumping, and normally I'm able to see the comments, but I cannot. So I apologize for folks who are listening and probably want to ask you specific questions. But we're going to keep rolling. So we talked about one book and how we expand that one book, but you then went ahead and created 4 more books. Tell us a little bit about those 4 other books and what inspired those and what were the messages there.
Well, the other 4 books I have are based on publishing. One is called Author Hacks, published on a shoestring budget. Another one is called Author Hacks Volume 2, on how to get speaking engagements and
Mm.
sponsorships, how to put your book in a bookstore. And I actually put all of my links and everything inside of that book. It amazes me on how people would rather pay me, $2,000 or pay, instead of getting the book, because the answers are really inside the book. I put everything in there.
Yeah.
So what inspired that was, and they're short reads, was I was on Periscope and live streaming, and a lot of people were in disbelief on how easy it was, how cost efficient it was. They were coming up with excuses on they didn't have enough money, they didn't know where to start, they don't know how to do it. And so I literally published and wrote this book on live stream with my followers from Periscope. I even put their Periscope handles inside of the book to give them thanks that they're a part of that, just to show people how easy, how fast, how simple it is, that you can definitely monetize. Remember, the third reason why you go through something to show people that nothing is impossible. And so with that, that's where the book came about, and why I published those books is to show people, because even I was amazed that there's books on Amazon as ebooks that are one pages. I mean, one page, just literally one page. And people have been selling it for $10.99. And they have thousands of book reviews from this one page of the book. And they've been doing it since 2010. And we're just keeping up with it. So I'm so grateful for platforms just like this one, to be able to give this knowledge, because again, you can only go as far or ask for things of what you've been exposed to. And even if it's one page of just information, you can sell that too.
Right.
And so that's how those other books came about, and how I've written those books, is to show people how easy it is, to show people it's not about time. If you have a husband, wife, and all a house full of kids, like the man in the shoe, of that story or whatnot, you can still definitely do it. And you can even speak your book. I tell people they can transcribe, like a podcast or a video just like this, that
Right.
if you're not, I don't want to sit at the computer. Okay, well, get on live stream. And that's what I did. I took the
Hmm.
live stream video and just had it transcribed and formatted it, edited it, published it. And so I share that and show people that. And that's why my followers on Periscope are inside of that book too, as well, is to show them that it's not complicated, it's not expensive, you can do it. And books are the only thing that lasts from generation to generation to generation. And if I want to leave
Right.
something on the world or make my mark, I say leave it in a book.
That's dope. That's dope. I mean, I want to share how you gave me so much game yesterday in our first conversation. You just kind of built $1 million business for me from one conversation. So I appreciate you. I'm definitely going to take that advice. That leads me to this group or community of authors or potential authors that you've created. Kind of talk about this group that you've created in that process.
Yes. So, just similar to our conversation, that's the experience all of our members get from me. Um, the membership group is Authors in Business, because publishing is not enough. It is a business. And if you don't look at your book like it's a business, you will fail. That book will just be on your shelf, and you really literally just written a journal. So
Mm.
inside our membership, my authors get a one-on-one. And the gift that I have is that I have God has gave me the gift of insight. So someone can tell me one little piece of an idea or something that they can do. And I literally see it in my head of every steps, like building blocks in my mind. And I just repeat, basically like watching a movie, what I see. And sometimes I even forget what I said, and I'm like, man, that was good. I should have done that. Right. And so that's the
Right.
experience they get inside of the membership. Also, they get, continued education and tutorials and learning. And a lot of my members, they're here on watching now, and they can definitely attest to that. The last thing, which is really important to me, is moving together as one. Just like you said, hey, look, did you seek knowledge, or did you get help before you started writing? Well, the truth is, knowledge, I tried sending out messages to authors. I tried asking for help, but it seemed like everybody wanted to keep it as a best kept secret. And
Right.
everybody was like, they don't want to share their audience or anything. And I'm like, well, after they read your book, they're going to have to read my book. Like, it just didn't make sense. And so my mother said, create what you want to see. Stop complaining about it. What are you going to do about it? And that's how Authors in Business came about. And I was asked the question, what do you want to be known for? For you guys who are publishers, it's not necessarily trying to find your purpose, but you found your purpose, publish your book. What do you want to be known for? And that's a real thought-provoking question. And so what I want to be known for is building a community, the largest author community, that people can go and get resources, and they don't feel as though it's competitive. It feels more as family oriented, and we're in this together. And sometimes they're like, why, like you said, I felt like you gave me $1 million business. Why did you just give me all this for this low membership fee? And I said, well, your book is my book. Your generation is your generational wealth is my generational wealth. The truth is, I can't reach everybody on my own. I will
Right.
overexert myself. But if I can help you knowledge, or help another person reach 10,000 people with different methods and ideas and experiences, if I can prevent them from some of the headaches and things I had to experience myself, if I can prevent them from spending so much money on things that they may not need, if I can point somebody in the right direction, then it was worth it. And that's what it's all about. And that's what this Author in Business membership community is about, is that we have to move as one and we can get further together than we can ever do alone. And your book is important to me as if it was my own. And that's the type of teacher that I am. I take it very seriously. I take people finishing what they started very seriously. And so it's not just an accountability partner, it's not just a teacher. You have a teacher that cares, that with the individuals in mind, that they're not just another check, not another stream of income, but they are a part of this community and I'm a part of them, because I know how it feels even from 17 years old of wanting to be a part of something. But the difference is that that person cares about you. And I encourage people to join regardless of how seasoned you are as an author. I may be able to tell you how to do something faster or an easier way to do it. And people can, I helped a lot of authors become best-selling authors, book sales, um, community opportunities, and they network with each other too as well. So it's not just me, like I'm the big show in the community, but they offer their inspiration and tips too as well. So you get to learn from other authors who are not scared to share.
That's dope. So for folks watching the video podcast right now, either live or on the YouTube replay, I have your website at the bottom. So dleeinspires.com/I'm ready. What's there? If they go there, what's there?
When they go there, they'll be meet with, of course, one of our landing pages. And so when they go there, of course, it tells all the different options that they have and what's included in their monthly membership. Just as I shared before, the monthly one-on-ones, the continued education and the training, the activities, because even with our members, I take them on tour. I asked Microsoft. I've been touring with Microsoft for 3 to 4 years. And it's funny on how is it that a convicted felon can't get a job at Microsoft, but yet they endorse and promote all of our authors. And so since 2016, all of our members, we have been able to go to Microsoft stores, 7 Microsoft stores nationwide. They've been able to go into other ponds, being big fish in other ponds, from Miami to Austin to California to New York on the Hudson River to Chicago. We were at the sky deck too as well. We had an event there, on tour. And so it's just an amazing experience, and that's what they'll find on the website of what they will receive every month, what is included in their membership. They can definitely cancel anytime, but it just doesn't stop at publishing the book. It doesn't stop at creating multiple forms of your book. It doesn't stop at monetizing. It doesn't stop at just community and you're just in another group. It doesn't stop at networking, but it also expands to opportunities. And so I'm putting you in connection with other people too as well. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. We have members that have been members for 5 years with us from the very beginning. And so it goes beyond just another membership, and it goes beyond just continued education. But we want to actually help you guys see results when it comes to becoming a member of AIB.
Wow, you are a powerhouse, Desiree. Complete powerhouse. You shared so much free game with that. We're getting ready to get out of here, but before we do, one last question, final question. Would you have ended up here where you are today if it wasn't for that experience 2 weeks out of high school? Do you think so, or do you think you would have been on another path?
I think I would be on another path, but it will probably still be in the realm of teaching. When I was in high school, I wanted to be an international interpreter. I was in pursuit of learning 5 languages at the time. And just like I think about how many forms, I said, well, if I learn Spanish and French, then I know I can speak Portuguese, because Spanish and French is Portuguese mixed together as Portuguese. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn, ASL. I'm going to learn sign language too as well, and just get paid to translate what this person is saying over here. And that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm helping people translate their stories into their business. I'm helping people translate and communicating and teaching the same thing. And I wanted to travel around the world. And so I said, man, if I learn these languages, it will put me in places where I can travel with as a career choice. And so with my book, I was still able to speak in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria. I was still able to get my book in Australia and also in London, in the United Kingdom. And so, and got an opportunity to go to Paris, France, just with my book. So when you ask me, would it be, the same? It might have been. And I just have a knack of just speaking. I mean, I always got great, high achiever, excellent grades. But every teacher just says, I just talk in class. I want to help everybody in class. And it was a problem because the teacher was like, let them teach. And so I found my space where I can do it without being reprimanded for it. So it's been an awesome journey. So I'm really happy with that.
Wow, you're inspiring. I so much appreciate you. This was a dope episode. I enjoyed it so much, learned a ton, as I always do. So for folks that are just being introduced to you, how do they connect with you? So go ahead and shout out your Instagram or wherever you live. Go ahead and shout that out for folks.
Well, the beauty of online, I can connect with you guys anywhere around the world. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channels. Make sure if you have a question, put your questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to definitely respond, just in case you guys can't find me. However, you can definitely find me on Instagram the same way me and Knowledge connected on Instagram at dlee_inspires, dlee_inspires on Instagram. It's the same as my website at dleeinspires.com/I'm ready. My email is the same, dleeinspires@gmail. And all social media platforms. I'm very personable, so please don't feel intimidated to reach out to me. And if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. All I can say is yes or no. And so, I know what my purpose is, and I just thank you guys for allowing me to operate in my purpose during the show. And thank you, Knowledge, again, for lending your audience to be able to help them and share with them on how to monetize their book. And so, regardless of where you're at on the spectrum of publishing, self-publishing, traditional publishing, definitely contact me so I can definitely help you. And if you want more educational tips, subscribe to my YouTube channel at Lee Inspires.
Thank you again. We appreciate you. For our audience, as always, we appreciate your support. Make sure that you go follow us. We'll have this up on all of our streaming platforms within the next 24 to 48 hours. This is episode 8. So what that means is we only have 2 more episodes left for season 2, and then we go into hiatus. And season 3 is going to be something awesome. And so make sure you continue to support. And again, we're talking about investing 45 minutes each week, and look at the type of information you get for simply clicking onto this button. So thank you again, Desiree. I appreciate it. Tremendous job. And of course, we will be talking very soon. Peace.
Thank you so much. Peace.